If your goal is money, you'll never have enough money. If your
Right.
goal is pleasure, you'll never have enough pleasure. If your goal is sex, you'll never have enough sex. You'll never have enough if when you get into battle, when you go into war, you're not going to rise to the moment of war, to the level of war in that moment. You're actually going to fall down to your training.
All the lotto winners, like majority, end up going broke. They got lucky. They
Right.
didn't develop any new skills. They're going to fall back into what they already were, and it's
Yep.
just going to be drama.
They look at you and they go, well, if I could meet Grant, or if I could meet Gary Vee, or if I could meet, and it's like,
Then
no,
my life would
idiot,
change.
that's not it. You don't greed your way into your next level. You don't steal your way into your next level. You don't lie your way into your next level. You don't cheat your way into your next level.
I've never shared this because it just happened this weekend, but I was debating if I was going to never talk about it until I actually do it. But what's up, Wealth Builders? Today, I have the man responsible for recruiting half my workforce. And he's not a recruiter, by the way. I mean, he is a recruiter for heaven, but not a business recruiter, but this guy pastors an amazing church in here in Vegas called City Light, and he's spoken on some of the biggest stages of other churches like Elevation, and you're just telling me you're at Joel Osteen's church preaching, and so he's done a lot. I got Jabin Chavez. What's up?
Hey, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to send our best people to work for you. So
There we go. Now, what's funny is I don't even know how it started. Actually, I do know how it started happening. Omar El Takori, who's been on the show. Omar and I had been friends for a little bit. And as I was growing the company, I would ask him, I'd be like, Omar, dude. Actually, I wouldn't even ask him. He was just watching my stories like a hawk. And he'd be like,
you need this.
Yeah. He'd be like, you need to meet him. And then it just was like one by one. And then I think the first guy he ever recommended was Justin Berry.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And he was like, this guy, Justin, he knows media, just hire him. And so, Justin came in for an interview. I was like, tell me about your walk with God. I didn't even ask him about media.
Wow.
I was like, why do you want to work here? And then just, here we are. And for those of you who didn't see his episode, we'll link to it down below. It was a really good episode,
Yep.
but he was, I think, the first domino, if I'm not mistaken.
Omar's a connector too. He's awesome at,
Yeah.
I feel like, seeing the need and then being like, okay, I know this guy, you need to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
He's helped us a lot. So
He's a good
Omar
connector.
Omar was with us literally day one of the church. And for you that, follow Omar now, he was a media guy at another church earlier and then kind of started doing his own thing, then started helping us at City Light. And kind of the first thing that happened was, it was like, well, you know how to run a camera? Can you film our sermons,
Yeah.
And legit, probably, I don't know, a couple of months in, he's like, hey, I just want you to know, I feel like there's more for me than just behind the camera. I feel like there's more in me. And I went, yeah, for sure, man. I mean, and so I said, well, let's get you away from the camera then. And to just see his life now, it's like,
Yeah.
incredible
Yeah. That's crazy.
where he's at,
Yeah. I remember, so I met him, I met Sean Cannell, and they both went to City Light.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, yeah, that's cool. I didn't really know anything about it. And then, Omar starts referring all these employees, and I didn't realize they were all coming from church. They're just people. I'm like, cause I don't even hire anybody. Like,
Right.
People just get hired and everything. And then I keep, hearing people talking about City Light. And then, we have our own little Bible study we do once a week. And I'm like, dude, I got to just check this thing out. Like, what's in the water?
All these guys are coming to the Bible study.
Yeah, what's going on here with these guys? And then, it started going, and it's been amazing, man. What you guys are building is incredible.
It's been great. 5 years, and it's been a huge journey. We're still portable and navigating all of that, and it's been awesome, but it's been a great 5-year run. And I think it's really cool to see, like, even just the city in general, how it's transformed even in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Just more and more city pride. I feel like even like the Golden Knights have been a huge part of that. Now the Raiders and everything else that's coming, it just feels like it feels way more like, I don't know. I mean, you've been here longer than me, but like that local, like people love to be here. People are excited to be here. So I'm super grateful to kind of have planted in this moment, because I feel like there's just everyone's rallying around seeing Vegas, I don't know, take on a new identity. It's like beyond just gambling and strip clubs. You know what I mean? Like what
Yeah.
it was. It's like become I had a friend in town a couple of weeks ago, and we were walking through the Wynn, and he goes, "Have you been to Dubai?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "Don't." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "This is better." He goes, "This is better than Dubai. It's like it's just a smaller, more compact, easier, more convenient version." He's like, "This is where I want to go now. I don't want to go to." I just thought that was a cool, for him to say that he's not gambling or doing crazy things. He's just like
going to shows.
Yeah, I want to be here. Yeah,
food.
So I thought that was kind of a cool, even with the F1 coming and all that. So it's I don't know.
Well, we got
seems like a cool part.
The Oakland A's, my alma mater.
Let's go.
Coming to Vegas. You got the Golden Knights just won the Stanley Cup. Yep. I was there on the winning game, so that was a amazing experience.
Epic,
the Raiders, obviously.
Right.
And then LeBron has even said he wants to own the basketball team. Like it's not if, when.
When they come to Vegas. Yep.
Yeah. So
that'll be crazy.
Between all these businesses that are coming here, real estate. That's why I'm so bullish on Vegas. People are like, "Where should I invest?" And I'm like, Vegas.
Totally.
I'm just like, there's not. I've seen it with my own eyes, and honestly, my best investments are when I want it. I'm like, what would I want? And then I do it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's why it was a good investment. Because if I want it, then other people do too.
When you see, like, when you go back to 2008 and that crash, the city was so different then, I feel like, and it was just people trying to get into real estate, trying to buy homes, but like now the economy is so different, such a stronger economy, right? I mean, would you agree with that? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, everybody during COVID was like, Vegas is toast.
Right.
And it was like, no.
Yeah, totally. That is crazy that it did the exact opposite of what so many people were saying. Oh, it's going to be another 2008. And it's like, no, it's not.
I walk in the casinos now and they're way more packed.
Totally.
Dude, you can't even get a reservation.
No.
At dinner spot. I'm like,
no.
At first I thought it was like a post-COVID thing because people were like locked up and all this. But dude, I mean, we're 3 years later and it's still the same.
I made a reservation for Carbone for September just to have it. Because it was like, maybe we'll use it. I don't even know if I'll be in town, but it's like the closest I could get. I mean, and I don't know anybody who if anyone has the Carbone plug, I'd love it. But it's like, it's impossible.
I could have got you in.
Okay, well, yeah, okay. I should have asked you. try not
no, but that's like,
my favorites.
Honestly, whenever.
But it's just a good picture of like, oh, you can't.
No, you can't. And whenever, I just look at it like, because before I ever go to a plug, I just try to do it myself because I don't want to like be a burden. So I'll be like, but then I'll see it. I'm like, dude, I can't even get in this place. Yeah. So then I'll hit somebody up and then I'll get in. But dude, it's crazy, man. The economy's
it's just
booming.
a sign of where it's at.
Yeah. So speaking of booming, I mean, City Light as a church is booming. I mean, just looking at from what I can see from the, starting out just only maybe a year and a half ago of starting to go and attend. You guys had a little shop with the held like what 200 people.
Yeah, 240.
Yeah, and you had to do like 5
But
services.
I mean, it was illegally 240. It was probably 150 legally, and then
and it's just jam packed.
Yeah.
5 services.
Right.
And then you guys did the opposite of what a normal church does. Like you had a space and then you went to a high school to get more space.
Yeah. It was wild. So we were 2 years old when COVID happened. And
how many attendees at that time?
At that time, we were doing about 1,000, just over 1,000 on Sunday.
Okay.
So we had grown fast in the first 2 years. But COVID hit and it was just a wild moment because there was so much going on in the world at that moment. And our church wasn't like an older established church that had strong culture and values. And so I feel like it was the worst of times, but it was the best of times because it was like, okay, everything that could go wrong was going wrong, from the pandemic to all the racial stuff that was happening, the political stuff, economic stuff. Like, it tore apart my personal leadership in the sense of like, oh, I'm not a good leader. There's just a lot of people showing up, but it's kind of a mess and a lot of disagreements and a lot going on. So we kind of replanted out of COVID which again, for me was like the biggest blessing. So it was like, okay, I've got to be clear on our values. I've got to be more decisive on what I believe. It was just like it was kind of like a new beginning that we got to have, or a second chance. So
that's kind of how growth always happens though.
Yeah.
If it happens quick, you're just like, oh man, I can't even.
And you don't know it's unhealthy till you go through something. And then you go, oh crap, there's a lot of issues here that we I did not know about
everything looked good.
Yeah, it looked right. And so, and I always tell people it was like there was momentum but not culture. You know, there was momentum but not values. So I turned it, and it was like July 2020. I kind of came out of the summer like, all right, I'm gonna lead this organization, and we're gonna figure it out. So we reopened. I think we reopened the last weekend of June 2020, kind of like a soft opening. Kind of didn't announce it, but just emailed our church and said, if you want to come, we're open again. Mm-hmm. Probably 100 people, at first started kind of trickling in, and, everyone's wearing a mask, and I didn't know any, I didn't know what to believe. Did these work? Did they not work? We're checking, temperatures. It was, our whole staff got COVID like immediately, immediately we opened and we all got sick. But we kind of just started, and slowly but surely the crowd started coming back, and we're now in a weird space of, I think we're like in the 1 percentile of churches in America that are larger now than we were before COVID. Mm-hmm. So the average church is running like 60 or 70% of their pre-COVID numbers. So
now you're talking in person.
Numbers in person.
Yeah.
So we're way over that now. And I don't know all the reasons, other than I do feel like I clarified kind of my leadership and what we were going to be about. But we never went like hard political. We never went hard on any of that. I think some of it was just right place, right time. And we opened early, in the sense of like, we didn't wait till January 21, we did open early. But we're in a space now that's pretty incredible of growth. And so 21 and 22 were kind of like slow growth, but it was like, wow, this is happening, Yeah. Because I thought, is it ever going to happen again? I mean, I know so many church planners like us that hit COVID and never came out.
Right.
They went online, and when they finally opened their doors back up, it was like, oh, no one's coming back. Yeah. So 23 hit, and we really hit like an exponential thing.
Yeah. I'm going to give you my perspective of what
I'd love that.
I've seen, but I want to hear, because you just said we had to clearly define what we were about.
Yep.
So I'm curious what you decided that was. And for those who don't know too, they're in the midst of building a whole new building to accommodate all the growth. And so that's super exciting. Mm-hmm. It looks beautiful. It's going to be an amazing home.
Yeah. I would say that I was pretty apolitical before COVID, in the sense of I was born and raised a conservative, but kind of just never didn't really know what to. I wouldn't have been like a hardcore conservative Republican.
Yeah.
I think I was a Republican, but I think as I saw, though, our nation going so progressive, and I remember seeing a Bernie Sanders kind of coming on the scene. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who was a Democrat, but kind of like a conservative Democrat, but a Democrat, and him going, oh, this Bernie Sanders, he's going to be around for like 2 minutes. You'll never hear about him again. AOC, you'll never hear about her again. These real progressive Democrats, you'll never hear from their agenda. They're just a radical fringe. And I was like, okay, that was like 2016, 2018,
He's got some wild ideas too.
But bro, look how how like the progressive agenda's just gone, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was kind of like, oh no, this is like the future of like where our country's going if we're not careful.
Yeah.
So it's not about Republican and Democrat for me. It was about like, man, there's like a progressive thing happening that's like snowballing and taking over. And I mean, just like you, I saw your post the other day about why you are homeschooling your kids, and it's like, Same for me. I think it was homeschool or
Yep.
yeah. And it was like, I would have never thought I was going to have to homeschool my daughter. Right.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh yeah, there is, this ain't happening. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So things like that are like, I feel like I had to start taking some stands on. Every Sunday's not a political rally, or I'm not it's not a bully pulpit, but like just kind of like being more clear on where I stand and where believers should stand on some of these things. And I think you can be a conservative. You don't have to be a Trump fan. You don't have to wear a red hat. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's where it's always like, well, what about Trump? It's like, well, you don't have to necessarily be a fanatic for Trump.
Yeah.
But still have some values. I think all of that began to affect our health as an organization, because it just made me go, it let the church know, like, I'm not going to be a chameleon through some of this, and just, we're going to believe what the Bible says, and if it's popular, it's popular, but if it's not, it's not, and that's okay, because I think that was a key moment. I don't even know for the growth of our church. I mean, I'd love to hear your perspective on even what you felt coming, but for sure on the health of our church, because it helped us define even staff values and,
culture fits.
Yeah. Culture fits. Yeah.
Just because someone's a Christian does not mean they're a culture fit.
Totally. 100%. And I think we had some of that. Like, we had some really high level volunteers.
Yeah.
And even some staff that were like, oh, you love the Lord, but man, we don't see life the same way.
Yeah.
And so, maybe this isn't the right fit for you. And not that we had to even make those decisions. It happened.
Yeah. One thing Tim Ross and I were talking about when he was here was, for me, one of the reasons I started Wealthy Kingdom was because I wanted to obviously bring Christian entrepreneurs together, right? From all backgrounds,
Yep.
Baptists, charismatics, Pentecostals, whatever, right? I wanted to bring everyone together and try and have more unity, in the faith. And I think we've done a great job of that. Everybody, we don't have any like loose cannons.
Right.
Like, bro, you believe in tongues?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't be a part of this.
Right.
Because obviously there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
So, when I look at it and I look at like, just the churches in general, Tim and I were just talking about it, and we were like, man, dude, there's just like so much divisiveness everywhere of like, well, if you don't believe this, then I don't know, you're a false teacher. Right.
Yep. And he's been canceled.
Yeah.
Multiple times. And I've always wanted to make sure that like the main thing is the main thing, and the things that I'm not going to judge anybody by a soundbite or by one moment or and whether it was right or wrong. I don't know. We talk so much. We're constantly talking. We're eventually going to say some things that are like, oh.
But can you imagine if like Peter was around during social media?
Oh my God.
And like how many times he would have been canceled or like dismissed. Like, do you remember that time he did that?
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this guy.
The three main human authors of Scripture, Paul, David, and Moses, all murderers.
Yep.
not like talk about cancel culture. Talk about like we would never listen. Yeah, did you read that blog on Paul? Did you hear about what Paul did? Did you hear about what David did with Bathsheba? It's like, obviously we're not justifying that, but it's also like you can't. I don't want to give, and I do think that was a big part of my change too, was like, I got way clearer on my values, but I was like, I'm going to completely reject cancel culture. Like, I'm not getting into this. I am not going to give into this hatred for people that we're seeing everywhere on the left and the right. Honestly, I mean, I think it was on both sides, but it was just like, man, I'm not going there. And that's why I love Wealthy Kingdom too, because there is room. There's room for disagreement, and hopefully in our maturity, we just go, we may not totally believe some of the same things, but we believe the main things.
Yeah,
and that's what really matters. and there's going to be, we're going to give grace on the things that we don't perfectly align with. Yeah.
I'll tell you, for me, the one thing that I've realized is, I grew up in the church. I grew up in a Baptist church, and in the last year, now leaning on the charismatic side.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I didn't even know any of this stuff existed. And I've been in church my whole life.
Right.
And I was like, what else don't I know?
Right.
It dawned on me, because it was like, for call it 33 years, I felt like, oh yeah, I might, maybe I didn't hear that verse, or, oh, I never thought about it in that way. That's kind of where I thought I was at in faith. And then to have it just so like reversed, and I'm like, whoa, I actually don't know anything. And now I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to argue about it, because I might be wrong.
Right. Well, no, 100%, because there are definitely people in their bubbles. And I think what I've really tried to do, even as a pastor, is I try to teach so that people can get something from what I'm saying. But then we try to leave room for God to move, room for experience, room for people to, really, our God is alive. He's not just a book,
Yeah.
he's.
So why do you think that the church has grown so dramatically in 2023?
I think some of that, I think some of the, what I always felt for our church was, and this is kind of a weird thing, but I saw how gifted our worship team was. And I even kind of knew my own gift of preaching in larger facilities, and I knew I was better in a bigger room. I just knew that. So our church is this, this mega church that doesn't know it's a mega church, because we're in this small room over multiple services. So they had kind of never seen me in a larger room. So I always knew when our church sees its own kind of impact in the community and gets to hear worship with 800 people in the room or whatever, and gets to kind of see me in that element, I always knew it was going to help our church. No one, which is crazy, over this year being in the high school, no one's been like, oh, we really missed a small building. No one said that.
No.
Because I think the experience is so much better. They get to see our worship and get to hear more people singing. And so I knew that was going to be a key. I think people being able to watch me kind of engage with a larger audience, I knew that I would be better in that. And I feel like people are experiencing that and being able to see that. And what you do out of that is, if you come and you go, oh man, this is great, I think you invite. And so literally in 5 years of our church, I've had one sermon where I've told people to invite people to church. It was the week before Easter this year.
Yeah.
Where I was like, please invite people to church. But I've never done that.
Yeah.
And because I think that the experience kind of, I hate to use a term like this, but sells itself, And I heard a story at the beginning of this year that I think has really shaped me. I want to share it at your conference next week.
Hey, if you're looking to grow your real estate investing business, whether you're just getting started trying to get your first deal, or you're trying to scale and get to the next level, you need to join us at Wealthy Investor. We've got events every single quarter that are absolutely crazy. We've got online coaching programs where we have Zoom calls, a community every single week. We give you everything you need to know to start your business, scripts, processes, SOPs, all of it. It's for you so that you can dominate. So if you want to learn more about how to join our community and be mentored by me and some of our top coaches and be around other students who are absolutely crushing it, go to wealthyinvestor.com, apply for a free call with my team. Once again, wealthyinvestor.com, apply for a call today. You'll get a big room there.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm pumped about it. But there was Chick-Fil-A was booming late 90s. But their big competition was Boston Chicken, which became Boston Market, but it was called Boston Chicken. So there was this huge goal that Boston Chicken came out with that said, we want to break $1 billion. We want to become $1 billion company, make $1 billion in 1 year. So that was the huge, massive thing. Well, the Chick-fil-A execs start freaking out because they're like, they're gonna kill us. So they're in this boardroom. They're all arguing about it. And how are we gonna go to $1 billion? How are we gonna compete with Boston Chicken? All this happens. And at the end of the table, the story goes that Truett Cathy slams his hands on the boardroom table and said, "Gentlemen, stop obsessing over becoming bigger. Let's just get better. And if we'll get better, our audience will demand that we get bigger. So we're going to work on everything. We're going to get better at everything. We're not going to try to get bigger." I've never set out to pastor a big church, ever. I've always said this. I want to pastor big people. I don't want to pastor a big church. I want to pastor big people. But I think what happens is big people have big influence, and the rest is history. But I never set out to be like, I want to be a mega church pastor. That was just never the goal. The goal was, I want to help people. I want, Austin's over here. I want Austin to be able to receive. I want you to be able to receive, and everyone in between. And I want to raise up big people, big on the inside. So he said, we're going to get better, not bigger. And then our audience will demand that we get bigger. Well, in the year 2000, Chick-Fil-A ended up breaking $1 billion. Boston Chicken had to reinvent itself. It's now Boston Market. I think they've got maybe 100 locations.
I don't even know if they're around.
Yeah.
I was like,
I think they're, I think they're doing okay, but they're nothing like what they were.
They're not Chick-Fil-A.
And they're nothing like Chick-Fil-A. And I've just always went back to that. Like, no, we're going to get better. That's what I'm going to work on from my communicate, like from the Sunday stuff. Cool. But in every area of my life and down to even teaching and like just trying to help people live a better life. And then I'll let the people demand our size.
Yeah.
Which I think is what's happened. It's like the people come, and they come with friends and family. That's been the crazy thing. Like we were just talking about a guy before we started filming. Great girl in our church invited that family. They came, they got saved, they got baptized.
Yep.
Now that guy's in my small group. Like it's just,
Yep.
I didn't set out for that. And he's, pretty influential guy.
Yep.
I never set out for like, I want to reach that kind of, was never the point. You know what I mean? And
right.
So, and I think even for guys who are in business watching this, it's like, work on getting better. Work on better culture, better values, better vision, clear. And then let your audience determine, that people will be attracted to that.
So my perception, having been a guy who walked in, I don't know, a year and a half ago, I obviously first kept hearing about it and seeing it from my own employees, right? And so these guys are showing up to Bible study, you see how people carry themselves in the workplace and everything else. And so, obviously all Christians should be, set apart and be different than everyone else. But, how often that's the case is, up for debate.
Yeah.
Most people, you don't even know if they're what they believe. Right. But with these guys and gals, I could see many of them were like super bold, talking about Jesus, and then obviously talking about the church and like really excited about all these things. Then I would hear about them like being in small groups and doing activities and, all this stuff. And I was like, all right, like this is the fruit of what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
If you're doing the right things. And so, I started going, and, the thing that stuck out to me was, I'd say a few things. One was that, so many of the attendees were like young. Yeah. It's a very young church. I don't even know. What do you think the average age?
I don't know. I remember you telling me that like early on. You went, wow, it's like a really young crowd, huh? And I went, yeah, I guess. And because I'm always like, hey, are we like too old? I'm always like the opposite. Like, I don't know. It's definitely, I don't know the age, but I'll tell you that.
I would guess it's like 30.
Yeah. I think I'm 39 now. I planted it when I was 34. Shannon was 31, my wife. At that point, we were like, we're not going to go like downtown and like rent out a club for like 19-year-olds to have church. Yeah. Like that wasn't going to be our thing. My thing was like, I want to go to the burbs and reach people like me. at
Yeah.
first. Like, I'm a young married family
Yep.
with a young family. Let's go reach young married families. And then as we grow and expand, yeah, maybe we'll do stuff for older people. Maybe we'll do stuff for younger people. Maybe we'll buy a downtown campus, whatever. But like, let's just go with what we know.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I think that would be, it's definitely 30s and 40s for sure. Cause it shows in our kids ministry. So on a Sunday, we'll have over 300 children,
Yeah.
but our youth group is like 40 kids.
Right. Cause we're not old enough.
Cause we're not old enough yet.
Yeah.
So, and that's okay. I'm never like, why isn't our youth group bigger? I'm like, yeah,
That makes sense.
they're not there yet. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? One day.
They will be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
As time goes on.
Yeah.
So that stuck out to me of like, wow, if you can attract people, you know, in their prime,
Right.
you know, the years of really like building a family, like you said, it's like, man, dude, this is the most influential years as a parent,
Yep.
right? You start bringing your kid to church when they're a teenager. It's like, that's amazing, but it's not going to have the same effect as if these kids grow up in the church.
Totally.
Just like I did.
Yep.
And so that stuck out to me like, wow, if you can get young people bought in, you know, the old people to me are easier to get,
Right. Right.
you know, and also too, a lot of churches go for the old people because they have more money.
Right.
Like that is what it is. And so I'm like, wow, this is very different. That was number one. Number two was obviously like seeing the fruit of the people. So to your point, it wasn't about getting bigger and more people, but like improving the quality of those people.
Yep.
And I can tell like on a per person basis, the quality and like the commitment is drastically different than
Yep.
many other churches. And I can just see it looking at it. And it's not to slight any other church. It's just like
Right.
many of these people are like truly committed to Jesus and doing more than just coming on Sunday.
Right.
I would, if I had to just guess, I would assume the majority do something beyond just attending Sunday,
Totally. Yeah.
which is not normal.
Right.
In most churches that size, it's like, if you can just get them to come Sunday,
Yep. Totally.
great.
Yep. Well, and you know, two things you said that I think are important. One was I wanted to see the people in a positive light. So I think a lot of pastors sell themselves short and sell the people short by going, man, they don't want to be here, and I'm going to get them in and out in an hour because I know they don't really want to be here, and I know they're really sacrificing to be here, and I know they have a million other things to do, and
Which isn't true.
which
but-
isn't true, right?
But not even from the pastor, but even like people are not that busy.
Well, no, totally, yeah. But it's how pastors see.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to ask them to serve, and we don't want to ask them to give, and we don't want to ask them to commit. And I've just always thought like, no, you're judging your people wrong.
Yeah.
I always decided, and I don't know where I got this. I don't think like God spoke it to me, but something in me was like, no, I think people love God. That's why they're coming. They're waking up. They're packing up their kids. They're getting dressed. They want to improve their life. They want God to be in their life. I just saw that as like, I'm actually going to judge it. Honestly, I think it was I can remember a Joel Osteen statement, and for all the Joel haters, I love you guys. But I remember Joel saying, you know, I know you love the Lord. That's why you're here. And I just remember like going like, yeah, I think there's something to that, because Joel, you know, at Lakewood, the average parking space from Lakewood Church is a half a mile away.
Whoa.
So you are parking in parking garages, and you are basically going to walk at a minimum of a half a mile from your car to your seat, half a mile.
He needs valet.
Bro, he needs valet. He does. He needs parking.
I'd honestly Uber to church at that point.
Right. Yeah. I think they're getting more of that now, where people are just like, dude, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. I'd Uber.
In the Houston heat. And I just remember going like, yeah, you love God. That's why you're if you're going to walk into our church at the time, starting off in a junior high cafeteria, sitting on a cold metal folding chair, like, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Like, I'm not going to judge you as like, you don't want to be here. And there was something in me that was like, no, I'm going to judge you like you love God, and I'm going to treat you that way. I think I've always had a positive mindset about people coming, even right now, high school. It's a huge upgrade from the middle school that we were in, but it's still a high school. You're still like you're walking your kids across a courtyard, and like, there's nothing convenient about it. So I've always tried to be positive about that. And I think the other thing you said about older people, like, and this could be kooky for people who, I say this and it might sound weird, but we really believe, that God can speak to us. And I felt like the Lord told me, if you will love and serve and care about the next generation and about the kids, I'll finance everything. But if you try to go after
the money,
he goes, you're going to have to trust those people to finance everything. And he goes, good luck. I mean, he didn't say good luck, but I just remember feeling this thing in me, like, we're going to love and serve and give ourselves. And I think we've proved it. My wife is the kids pastor, she doesn't have to be, but she is. Like, we're going to do everything. Not about like, let's have loud, cool music. It's not that. It's actually your kids. Like, we're actually after loving and serving and seeing your kids come to Christ. And the kids don't have any money. Kids don't have any influence. That's not what. And so we've just built it off of that conviction. And I feel like God's been like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm going to bless that.
Yeah.
Cause you're not going after the money or older or influential, or like, it's great when it happens, but we've never built ministry around it. That's the difference,
Yeah. No, 100%. Those things stuck out to me, and just like, obviously going there and seeing just the experience of everything, from the people, the message, the worship. Well, everything's worship, but the music,
right.
Just everything. And you're just like, wow, I see, this makes sense of why this is happening. And so, from my own like spiritual journey, it's interesting because, as I was saying earlier, my thoughts on faith have changed a lot in the last year and a half. And one of the things was like, if you would have told me 2 years ago that you were like with Joel Osteen, I'd have been like, he's out. Like, this guy, I don't know what he believes or who he is, but I'm already going to judge him.
Right. It's a no.
Of his affiliation.
Joel's trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually think that was one of the first things I asked you.
Right.
I was like, we were sitting, it was probably after the first time I attended. And so I went back and we talked, and I was like, so what do you think about guys like Joel Osteen and stuff? And you were like, well, I actually spoke at his church last week or something. It was like something like that. I was like, oh, okay. And it just made me like also realize like, well, I don't think Jabin's crazy. I don't think Omar's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think that Derek Carr's crazy.
Right.
And these guys that were like really coming into my life at that period.
Yep.
I was like, maybe I'm the one who needs to like not be so closed-minded and judgmental. And
well, and you know what's funny is that like someone asked me about John MacArthur the other day.
Yeah.
And I went, man,
they're like the two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. If you're not into church, you wouldn't know but if you're in church, there's J-Mac,
one's
there's
LeBron,
John MacArthur,
one's Jordan.
Yeah. And they are enemies.
Yeah.
And I said, oh man, I love John MacArthur. I said, I don't think he would love me, but I love him. I listen to his sermons. I always learn stuff from him. And probably just like listening to Joel, I would listen to John MacArthur and go, yeah, that isn't, I don't agree with that. I don't believe that, but man, I loved that.
Yeah.
Same way that I'd listen to Joel and go, yeah, I wouldn't have done that, but I love that, you know, and that's okay. And just like Joel would listen to me and go, I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I think, and then probably John just wouldn't be a fan at all. But my point is, something in me, I don't know where I got exposed to it, but where I was just like, man, the body of Christ is so big. It's so diverse, and probably a little bit even based off of like personality and upbringing. We kind of have our bents, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so I know that there's going to be people who walk in our church, same way that you walked in and liked it. There's going to be guys who walk in and go, nah.
Yeah.
He was too loud. Music was this.
Yeah.
I didn't like this. Totally, totally okay. He's friends with Furtick. I don't like Furtick. Furtick's this or that. Like, that's okay. So, and to me, I'm going, I know I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
But that's why that church is there and that church is there.
Yep.
And so something in me was able to celebrate that. And I hope that more people will be open to some of that and not just so close-minded to, even if it's like, yeah, that's not for me. It's also not the devil.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Because that is usually the attitude of like,
right.
That's Satan. And yeah, because like even for me, I was growing up, my grandma would listen to Joel Osteen all day, every day.
Yep.
And growing up, I didn't know any. I'm just like, whatever. Like, this is great. And then as I got older and I started like actually like learning about John MacArthur and seeing all these things and having friends in that space, I was like, Grandma, you can't be listening to Joel Osteen. Like, I don't know what you're doing. And like, this is such like a holy, you know, God-fearing woman who raised, you know, my mom, and which led to me, and you know, all this stuff. And
you're literally her legacy, and you're like,
yeah, I'm like, why are you listening to this guy? So then, you know, whatever, I kind of had that mindset, like I said. And then, you know, going on the whole other side of opening my mind now, I'm like, man, why am I listening to this guy, MacArthur over here? And like, then I think about it and I'm like, the truth is somewhere in between all of it. And, you know, it's like right now I go through a different study Bible every year. And so right now I'm actually reading the MacArthur study Bible. And so it's interesting to go through it with this kind of different open mindset of like, I don't know that I agree with the notes there.
Yep, totally.
On what he's saying, but
yeah. And I've got a MacArthur study Bible.
Yeah.
You know, and it's part of my kind of repertoire as I'm writing sermons. And sometimes it's like I'll read it and I'll be like, man, I really align with that.
Yeah. And
then other times like, whoa, no, not at all. Like, I don't see that at all the way you saw it. And I think that's just part of, I think as I got really into theology, you figure that out too. There's so many theologians. They're all coming back to the same book. They're all coming back to the Bible with some different perspectives. And that's good. That's not a bad thing. It's there's room for some of that. Not all of it. Some of it is very foundational that we can't get away from, but some of it is, you know, there's room, and that's okay.
So one thing you brought up a few weeks ago in one of your sermons was like basically saying you fall into your patterns.
Yeah.
And I thought it was such a good message because I've said it kind of in a different way, but I'll let you say it for the people who didn't hear it.
Well, the original thought is there's been a lot of variations on this thought. One of them comes from the military, where they say that when you get into battle, when you go into war, you're not going to rise to that moment. You're not going to rise to the moment of war, to the level of war in that moment. You're actually going to fall down to your training.
Yeah.
And
you don't just develop these new skills.
You're not. Yeah, you're not just. It's not just.
I'm just an expert marksman when I need it.
All of that is going to happen in training, not in the moment. Whether you're a sniper, whether you're just in combat on the ground, you're not just going to rise to the level of that moment. You're actually going to fall down to your training. And so what I talked about was, you're never going to rise to your vision and your dreams. You're actually going to fall to your patterns. And God's a God of patterns. God's a God of times and places and people. And you read the Bible, it's a book of covenants and promises and decisions, not really destiny. And so that was another phrase I said. We think of the Bible as a book of destiny. It's really a book of decisions. And so we all have a destiny. God has a plan for our life, but you're only going to find your destiny in your decisions. And so patterns are everything. And our base scripture that we were talking about is when God was giving Moses the vision for the tabernacle. He said, I want you to make it just like the pattern I've shown you. And so life isn't as there is definitely a part of life that can feel at times like right place, right time, wrong place, wrong time. There's weird miracles and there's weird tragedies to life. Like there are mysteries to life, but I would also say 90% of our life isn't mysterious. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? 90% of our life is like,
there's a reason you have what you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
90% of our life is decisions, patterns, good or bad, you know, and making those. And so I I think, I don't know if this, and this maybe has been a key to our church as well, but it's like, I'm just trying to help. I'm legitimately trying to help guys come into church and hear things like that and go, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about, like, man, sometimes like the lifting hands and shouting and the crying, ugh. But, oh, I like that. Like, just give me something, Jabin. Just like, tell me what to do this week. I think it's been a key. But I also think that was the side of the scripture that was so life-changing for me. It was not just the mysterious, miraculous side of life, and it's there, but also just like the, hey, do this. And, you know, choose life and you'll live. You know, there's these scriptures that are like just so practical. Mm-hmm. Choose wisdom. She'll protect you. You know, it's like, oh yeah, okay, let me do that. Love your wife. That's going to go well for you. You know, don't cheat on her. Cause you know, if you do hurt, you know, that woman's husband's going to come after you and kill you. It's like, yeah, that's a good principle. I shouldn't, you know, there's just all this stuff in there that's it's so practical, and, patterns are everything. And I think that's why people like you. I think that's why people are drawn to you. People are listening to you, because there's so much just very practical how to. I think people are craving that right now. I think people want more of that. People are wanting to improve their lives, and it isn't for most of us, it isn't going to be a lucky break or winning the lottery. Yeah. It's going to be patterns. It's going to be daily decisions. It's going to be the slow success in the right direction. Just like long-term obedience, long-term commitment to it.
Yeah. I tell people this all the time. Like, if you were to, you know, it's like, there's the stat that all the lotto winners, like majority, end up going broke.
Totally.
And you're just like, well, why is that? Well, they didn't develop any, like, they got lucky. They didn't develop any new skills. They're going to fall back into what they already were, and it's just going to be drama. You know, I was talking to one of the guys in our Bible study, and he's having marriage problems and stuff. And I'm like, dude, and you know, it's not that he was trying to blame his wife completely, but I'm like, honestly, let's just look at the facts of how the marriage is played out and everything else. Like, let's just substitute her out for some other girl. Right. I'm going to give you my unbiased, like, how I think it plays out. I think this still happened, right? You would have still been doing this before you got married. You get married. You're still, like, not a very mature guy who's leading. Yep. I was like, I don't think it plays out any differently. Right. Like, you're still the same guy you are. And even if you get a divorce now, you're still the same guy you are. Yep. You're going to end up with the same problem with a different person.
Totally. Yeah. I tell people all the time, you know, people want to move. They want to move to a different city or move out of that marriage or move whatever, transition, leave that job. Yep. I'm like, you know, you're still going to be there, right? Like, move to Dallas. You're still you. Marry that other chick. You're still you. Yeah. Find that new job, leave Starbucks and go to Whole Foods. You're still you. Like, you're not going to escape you. Yeah. So figure it out. You know, a lot of people celebrate losing weight. No one celebrates keeping the weight off. So no one celebrates you for being in shape. Yeah. They celebrate me for losing 35 pounds, but they don't celebrate that you're at the gym every morning. Yeah. Well, that's the problem with our culture. Yeah. It's like, none of us are celebrating the pattern. None of us are celebrating the day to day. Mm-hmm. So I've been in a good pattern right now, but I've got 35 more to go. And the real test is not going to be when I lose the next 35. The real test is going to be in 2 years. Yeah. Right. And that's what he was just trying to show me a principle of, like, you know, no one celebrates the consistency of greatness, because we're all looking for the big break. We're all looking to go viral. We're all looking for this, that, and the other. And it's not that any of those things are wrong. It's just that you can't really build long-term success off of those things, off of moments. Mm-mm. And that's what I talked about last week. I said, we got to mature from moments to patterns, because we're all looking for the next moment. Yeah. Okay, this, okay, that. Oh man, I'm on this podcast now. That's going to be okay. I'm on. Oh man, that guy did this. Okay, man, I met this guy. Wow. No, it's not moments. Yeah. It's the patterns. that are going to save us and help us and change us. And I saw a guy, I preach for, usually when I'm traveling and preaching, I usually preach at a church annually, or sometimes it's biannually. And so I like to go like every 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I was with a guy, hadn't been there in 2 years. I walk in and he looks incredible. He's lost weight, he's in shape. And I go, oh my gosh, how have I not seen, like, man, what happened? And he lost like 60 pounds, but not just like skinny, but like put on muscle. And what have you done? I'm just like blown away. Well, it felt like yesterday when I saw him, but I hadn't seen him in 2 years.
Right.
So he goes, well, yeah, the last 2 years I've cut out soda and I've been eating protein and I've been working out. And I go, yeah. So like, did you take any supplements? No, man, just
the basics.
Just working out, cutting soda, not eating sugar.
Yeah, but was there like steroids or anything?
Yeah, did you like do HGH? No, I just cut out did you get a surgery? No, I just did you do are you on anything? Are you on? No. And it was like I couldn't accept his pattern. I didn't want his pattern.
I want the magic bullet.
Yeah. I want the magic pill. What'd you do, man? I want the magic bullet. I want so I wanted that instantaneous.
Yeah.
What I saw after not seeing him in 2 years, what we are ignoring is the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. And he lost that weight in the first year.
Yeah. Then he's maintained it.
Yeah. And he's just the maintaining.
Yeah.
And so that is, I think, what a lot of people don't want to believe, even about a guy like you. They don't want to believe it. They look at you and they go, well, if I could meet Grant, or if I could meet Gary Vee, or if I could meet, and it's like, no, idiot, that's not it. It was because they don't want to.
If I could golf with Pastor Jabin in my life, I would be saved.
Right. Because they don't want to accept flipping couches. They don't want to accept flipping home. They don't want to accept the grind. They don't, in their mind, they just can't. And the same thing happens in my world with pastors, right? Oh, how are you building a $20 million building? How'd you increase your budgets? How's your church growing? And they're looking for a magic pill. They're looking for, and it's like, no, like Steve Wynn isn't going to our church, The Raiders aren't all coming to our church paying the bills. Like, it's not like that. It's, but they're looking in every field. People are like looking for the thing, and it's the pattern.
Yeah. So I've always said that. I actually got this from my friend Brandon Carter, who's coming to speak at WealthCon too. And he was like, people don't, he said the same thing, but in different words, that he's like, people don't rise to like their goals. They fall to their standards.
Yep.
He's like, so what you're really trying to do is just raise your standard, for what you're trying to achieve. And I thought about it because I'd never heard it until he said it. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
And I was thinking, like, just throughout my life, like the minimum standard at which I allow for myself, whether that be financially, health, spiritually, whatever, that is what I will default to. Now, are there times where I get ultra motivated?
Right.
For sure. But eventually that wears off.
Yep.
And then I fall back to my standard.
100%.
I just think, like, okay, to your point, who you are today is basically a culmination of all the decisions you've made up to this point, which is essentially like the minimum of which you're going to allow yourself. And so, I use, like, we're talking about health, and I've been 180 pounds for 13 years straight, plus or minus. And, there are times I'm a little leaner, sometimes I'm, a little flabby, but overall it's always the same. And so, to your point, I've never had anyone be like, dude, good job, you lost 20 pounds. It's never happened. And it just is like, it doesn't get celebrated. Right. But like, my standard for myself is the moment I start to get a little overweight, like 2 pounds, 3 pounds, I immediately stop. I'm like, I'm either not eating today. I'm gonna, that's usually what it comes down. I'm like, I'm not eating today. I'm not like having a drink. I'm meal prepping next week. I'm getting back to my standard. When I look at like my spiritual walk, and I don't want to say this to like sound cocky or anything, but it's just the reality of what it is. Since 2016, when I finally when I started doing what I would call my morning routine, and I talk about it in the Wealthy Way book for anyone who wants to read it. But that was the moment I decided I'm going to read my Bible every morning. I'm going to pray every morning. I'm going to work out, whatever days I decide I'm going to work out. It's not 7 days a week, but it's at least 4 days a week.
Yep.
And I kid you not, for the last, 7 years, I have hit it over 99% of the time. Like, I don't miss a day. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
And the only way it doesn't happen is if it was like a scheduling thing that made it not. I had an overnight flight, but even then it's like, it's still like, I'll read my Bible on the plane.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do whatever. If I couldn't work out, I couldn't work out, but I'll do it the next day. Like, it'll get done.
Totally.
And it's just, that's what like, there's nothing sexy about it.
Right.
It's just,
well, yeah. And I do think that is the side we don't want to believe that. And that's the crazy thing about, like, I think you would say this about guys in the business world, and I'd say this about guys in ministry. When you talk about the big dudes in ministry, the Joels and the Stevens and the Craig Rochelle's, whatever, I don't know whoever they are, you would find out that they're all very different. They all have their own personalities. They all have their own ways of leadership. They all have their own culture. They all have their own, but then there's these similarities, these X factor morning routines and disciplines, wildly disciplined men, right?
Yeah.
Like just psycho discipline. It's the side that that they don't celebrate and that no one celebrates, but it's what really makes them who they are. And so, and it's the thing we don't want to accept, because then it's like, oh, then I'm responsible.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a couple, like I said, 90%, like you're going to have that 10% you're going to have some incredible big breaks.
Yeah.
You're going to meet some awesome people that are going to propel you. You're going to have a couple of tragedies. You're going to, like, there are going to be those things. And I've had those. I've had some wild ups and some wild downs, but over time it's that 90% of patterns.
Yeah.
That's actually sustaining me. And when you have healthy patterns, what happens is you can outlast the hell.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have healthy patterns, you can actually do something with the good. Like, you get a big break and you can actually do something with it because you're
prepared.
Yeah, you're prepared and you know what to do. When opportunity knocks, you're dressed.
Yep.
And so it's like, it's the thing that I wish more people would embrace. Business, family, the pattern of a date night, a healthy sex life, of all, like, on and on and on. We could go.
Yeah. And I'll even tell you, I don't even talk about that a lot, but like, even on the marriage side, we've created the same pattern. It's like, hey, Friday is date night.
Yep.
We're going, right? Our sex life has been very consistent.
Yep.
And it's not easy by any means to do all of those things, by the way, right? It's just over time. But I will say, over time, it does get easier.
Yep.
As you just build up that muscle and that discipline, it does become easier.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I don't notice that about me, because it's like, I just do. I just, like, do what I do. I don't think about it. It's just like on autopilot. And Grant Cardone was actually telling me that. I was in his office a month ago on his podcast, and he goes, bro, I saw you a couple years ago and I saw a video. I was like, that guy, that what he's saying is good stuff. And he's like, I was like, that's good. He's like, but I didn't think, anything of it. Then I saw you again. Then I saw you again. Then I kept seeing you over and over again. He's like, the thing that stuck out to me was, this guy is consistent.
Yep.
He will just keep doing it over and over again. He's like, when I saw that, I knew you were going to be good.
Right.
And that never even occurred to me that was like how people saw things who were successful.
Right.
But now when I look at like partners and opportunities and everything, I'm immediately looking at essentially their discipline and their consistency and everything, because I'm like, dude, you have a good idea today.
Right.
That's great. How often have you executed your good ideas?
Yep.
How often have you like went to it? And because there's these guys I meet like more often than not, like, oh yeah, I was thinking about doing this, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I see these guys like rise really fast, and then they burn. They're like, oh, I got burned out. And it's like they couldn't keep that pace, that the consistent pace.
Yeah. And it's literally in every area. It's in your relationships, it's in your personal character, it's in your integrity, it's in what, like, you name it, it's the thing that, and I honestly laugh sometimes at some of the opportunities I get. I think my gift has grown. I think like, no false humility, I think I'm very good at what I do, but I was rolling with a group of guys that were all ahead of me that are kind of like nowhere to be found anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I just outlasted them.
Yeah.
I'm not better. I'm not better looking. I'm not more spiritual. I'm not more talented necessarily. I kept my pants zipped up and I honored my marriage and I honored God and I stayed in the word and I stayed in prayer. And it was like, my patterns have outlasted guys who maybe were more gifted than me.
Right.
And
had a bigger start.
Yeah. Had a bigger start, had more big breaks.
Yeah.
But here I am, just keep showing up. And it's like, and sometimes just the law of attrition, you just keep outlasting.
Yeah.
And I think that is a side to it that guys have to embrace, men have to embrace, women have to embrace, in every area of your life, business or ministry, anything else. It's like, yeah, you're just still here.
Yeah. And I learned that from my baseball career, man. Like, dude, literally did the same thing every day. Warmed up the same way, ate the same food, worked out the same routine, took ground balls, hit, did the same crap every day. And then we'd go play 140 games in 150 days, stay in the same hotel. Like, it was just like Groundhog's Day every day. And I did that like the majority of my life. And you think about that and you're like, yeah, that makes sense why, like, it just seems normal to me. Like, you just have a routine. You just do that. And so whenever somebody tells me, like, dude, like, I can't wake up that early or something like that, I'm like, in my mind, I say unchristian things. Yeah. I'm like, you soft, like, and then I just actually end it right there. I'm like, you're just soft. Yep. That's what it comes down to. Totally. I don't say what the full thought is, but I'm like, you're just soft. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. If waking up is your biggest problem, you can't even do that. How, like, soft and weak are you? Well,
and there's so much in the Bible about all of this. It's a trip, like, especially for people who are watching who aren't like Bible people maybe, and you just think of it as this spiritual thing. It's actually super practical. And so, like, you're reading the book of Proverbs and it says things like, wise people love discipline. Yeah. You love it. You actually love the routine. You love the discipline of waking up. You love saying no to things. Yeah. You love resisting. You actually fall in love with it. So maybe at first it's a discipline, but it becomes a delight. It becomes something that you get energy from. Someone told me that when you can become popular for the things you say yes to, but you become respected for the things you say no to. And the more you learn to say no, the more respect grows. Yeah. And the higher your respect level, the opportunities are just so much bigger. Yeah. So the more what's wild in my life right now, the more I'm saying no. And I feel like I'm saying no 80% of the time, just in life, in general. Most questions that come to me, it's a no. Yeah. But the 20% is so freaking huge, because as my respect level has grown in the world, in all areas, that 20% of yeses is way more than the 80% of no's. And so there's something about, you learn to love discipline. You learn to love the routine. You learn to love the monotony. You learn to love, even like vacation for us right now. I like going to Newport Beach. I don't really like going anywhere else. It's like, I love my Blue Bottle coffee in Lido Island. And I love, you know what I mean? It's like, I love my spot. I love my thing. I've been to Europe. I've done, and some of that, like, I've been blessed to do, but now it's like, man, I just like going back to Newport. Like, it's like, and I like a spot in Hawaii, and it's like, I never understood how people could buy a vacation home. And now I'm like, oh, I kind of get that now. Cause you like your, you like your rhythms. You like your thing.
So what would you say? Obviously you've pastored a lot of men and marriages and everything else, and a lot of guys who watch majority of people who watch the show are dudes. So,
Yeah.
I talk a lot about that. So shout out to all the women watching this show. We
Yes.
appreciate you. Comment below if you're a woman. We might do something special. Maybe I don't want to rope my wife into this, but I was gonna like do some like giveaway with my wife or something. The women hang out. But like, what are you seeing as some of the big problems that people are having? Just like personally, or because I mean, like you're basically like a counselor too,
Right. Yeah.
to
I
so
am,
many
yeah.
people. Like, what are issues that are becoming very common in today's world?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely a huge rise of fear, anxiety, all of those kind of pressures. And I think for a lot of men, they don't even know how to. A lot of times they don't even know what they're feeling,
Yeah.
so they don't know how to process it. So I think that has become a huge thing that I'm trying to help guys process through. And so I think that the key that I'm trying to help guys with is, number one, everything that we just talked about for the last 20 minutes. Like, you're not powerless.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have a say in this. And then two, trying to deal with the fears and the anxiety and how to actually deal with it, because it's like, well, I prayed or I read the Bible, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's part of it. But you're a spirit, you live in a body, and you have a soul, which means that you have to be healthy on multiple levels, which can feel, I think, a little overwhelming. Like, you hear that and you're like, oh my God, there's a lot to this. Yeah, there is. Like, you're a grown up, you're an adult. So you're healthy when all three are healthy. So there's the spiritual connection to God. It's very important. And there's the outflow of that spiritual connection, which is service. So you got to have that. So there's this prayer, meditation, reading, connection to God, but there has to be a flow of service in some way where you love God and you love people.
Yep.
Then there's the soul realm, which is relationships, it's mental health, it's figuring out how to have a healthy soul, which is a whole other conversation, which we can have. And then there's the physical, there's the body, and it's getting that into not just into shape, but into subjection. So you're not acting out on every lust, every greed, every
desire,
every craving.
Yeah.
And that could be sex, that could be money, that could be food, could be a substance.
Yep.
And as you become healthy on all three fronts, what I've learned when anxiety is high and fear is high, and I'm going to be teaching on it this week. I'm going to be talking about fear this week. When anxiety is high and fear is high, I know that in one of those areas I'm out of balance.
Mm.
So it could be as practical as I need to pray, or I need to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Or, and I have to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I got a question on that, but one thing I'll add too is, it kind of cracks me up when I see people who are like, well, you should just do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
And like, that's what really matters. Just do what makes you happy and you'll be good. And I'll be like, so you just like happy 24/7? Like, how does that work? Like, it just is all the time. Like, you don't have struggle or anything. Like,
yeah.
What makes a kid happy? They just want to play video games and eat candy all day.
Right.
Like, so is that what you do? It's like,
right.
It's like, well, and people talk about, well, I'm just going to love the person and whatever. And in my mind, this is how we can live. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you think, that's what you think, but it's not what I think.
Hedonism is a lie. To try to live your whole life for pleasure, it'll never be enough. You'll never, like, if your goal is money, you'll never have enough money. If your goal is pleasure, you'll never have enough pleasure. If your goal is sex, you'll never have enough sex. If your goal is, you'll never have enough if there's no purpose behind your life. And so there's an author who said, in order to be happy, you have to have someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. Now, he was not a believer when he wrote that, but what did Paul say? These three things remain: faith, hope, and love. So you got to have something to look forward to. That's hope. You got to have something to do. That's faith. You got to have someone to love. That's love. So happiness is not a car. Happiness is not a watch. I really like my watch. I really do. I'm getting another watch when I turn 40. I like watches. It's something, but it's got to be beyond that. It's got to be beyond stuff. It's got to be beyond pleasure. It's got to be beyond things. It has to be someone to love, something to do. You gotta have a vision. Like your goal cannot be retirement. That can't be I don't want to work anymore. I want to make money so I don't have to work anymore. No, you gotta have something to do.
Yeah, I tell people that. I'm like, where in the Bible is there retirement?
Yeah.
Like, just show me it. Like, at what point, like, retirement was like a good thing.
Right. Well, no, and it's like, there is a lot right now of like selling personal freedom and personal happiness. And again, I want you to be happy and I want you to be free, but the goal should not be, I don't have to work.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the goal. Even
we're meant to work.
Even sometimes when you hear like a really high level leader, like a leadership guru kind of talk about, you just do your strengths and hire your weaknesses. Yes, at a certain level. But like for 99% of the people who are watching this, we're not there yet. Even me.
Yeah.
I'm a really high level guy. I own 4 companies. I do okay financially, but I'm still still in the weeds a lot. I'm just not there yet. Now, yeah, maybe in 10 years, but like, again, like that isn't the goal. Like, and I think you got to have something to do.
Yeah.
And then you got to have something to look forward to, which I think to me is not just, okay, I want this square footage of a home or this car, even though those are great goals, have those goals. But when I think of something to look forward to, I'm thinking legacy and like long-term impact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just, it's not just stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with stuff, but it's got to go way beyond that.
Yeah. What do you think about when, you're talking about watches and stuff? I mean, you have nice stuff. You got Rolex, nice shoes, nice home.
These are all fake. These are all from China. None of this is real. Yeah.
Like, what do you think? Like, with the criticism that comes with that, being a pastor?
Yeah, totally. I think one, I would say wealth is very relative, because if you compare me to a lot of people, I'm very poor, but I know I'm also in the 1%. I didn't come from money. My wife didn't come from money. But we were always entrepreneurial, and I think it got on us. So we own 4 different companies. One of them happens to be a nonprofit. It's a church, we're the CEO.
What are the other ones?
I have a communications company, a for-profit communications company. Shannon owns a company called Launch Sunday, which is a printing company. And then she has her own design company. Got it. So we have 4 streams of income that way. And then I'm really into investing. So in the stock market. So that's another stream, I guess.
We gotta get you out of the stock market, but go on.
Yeah, sorry.
Go on.
You know what happened? You want to talk about, like, sometimes you have a lucky break? I just had a lucky break. I got into it.
Did you buy GameStop or what?
No, I got into it at the bottom of the COVID craziness, and so now it's become a part of my. So that was that.
So you're an expert trader now.
So I'm not an expert trader. I'm literally one of those Robin Hood lucky dudes. So, but now I'm into it. So, so there's that. I am one of those unique preachers that actually would tell people that God does want to bless your life. Not just for stuff, but to be a blessing. That's what God promised to Abraham. I'm going to bless you so that you can be a blessing. So I want to be a conduit. I don't judge my prosperity by what I have, but by what I've given. And by the grace of God, we've been able to give a lot. And I love that. Not at the expense of my family. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to take care of my daughter. We're going to take care of our future, but like at the expense of a lot of fun stuff that I could have right now, like we've postponed our dream home.
Yeah.
our forever home. Because at this point, we're very committed to a lifestyle of generosity that we want to have. And so it's not a big sacrifice. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we budget around what we feel like the Lord is telling us to give, and not just according to kind of what we want. But I always say you can have stuff, but stuff can't have you. And how do you know it has you? You can't give it away. So if you can give it away, it doesn't have you. Mm-hmm. If you can't give it away, it has you. But I'll never apologize for living in a safe neighborhood, driving a safe car, putting my kids in the education of my choice.
Yeah.
Which that to me is what money's all about. It's all about freedom. It's all about freedom and legacy. It isn't about junk. It's about freedom and legacy. So freedom means I get to decide how to educate my child, not the system.
Right.
Legacy means I get to pass down generational wealth. Those are the thing. Legacy means I get to be a part of helping the kingdom of God, or whatever you're into, to help. That's the goal of finances. The goal of finances is not the Rolex, though. I'm glad I was able to buy this when I was able to, because it's doubled in value. So it's a good investment, but it's not about that. Now there's going to be toys. Some guys like to hunt. Some guys like to fish. Some guys like to surf. Some guys like to golf. Some guys like watches. Some guys like, and I do think recreation does have to be a part, like for business guys who are listening to me, you do have to have some healthy recreation, and you've got to find that through hobbies. And I'm not a car guy, but if you like a certain car, drive it. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I think there is a side to this that I think is important that we talk about just really quick. Like, as a man, we're supposed to be humble, and we're supposed to live for the glory of God, and we do. But we also have a masculine ego side to us that is okay to have, a competitive nature that's okay to have. I think sometimes when we think of church, or we think of God, or we think of it, it's like you're not supposed to lose your masculinity. You're not supposed to lose your gender, female or male, like when you come to Christ. So when Paul says there is no male or female in Christ, he's not talking about we lose our gender. He's saying we're both equally valuable. That's all that means. So like, as a man, there is an ego, there's a pride, to your life. That's okay. And that pride could be the excitement of, wow, we've prospered, or man, I went to the gym, or.
Why do you think there's such a negative connotation of money in Christians? Because even for me, obviously I talk a lot about money, and my career is like teaching people how to make money and doing it myself. And then, obviously I talk about faith too. And so I do get a lot of backlash sometimes about like, well, dude, why are you freaking buying this stuff and doing that and whatever, living extravagant. And I don't ever respond to it, but like,
one, I would say extravagance is relative, right? I remember a guy sat down with me at coffee one day and challenged me on a watch that I was wearing, and he had an Apple Watch on. And I said, I promise you paid more for your Apple Watch than I paid for this watch. I promise you.
Yeah.
Just because I'm just going to guess what you make a year. You paid more for your watch than I paid for mine.
Yeah.
So let's just.
Yeah. If you're broke and you have an Apple Watch, you paid more.
Right. So careful. We got to be just careful how we even approach some of that. But two, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So we don't love money.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Be rich in good deeds. It's all 1 Timothy chapter 6. I taught it Monday at your Wealthy Kingdom Zoom call. Be rich in good deeds. So, but it also says in that text that God's given us all things to enjoy. So I'm gonna be led by the Holy Spirit. I'm gonna give generously. I'm gonna be rich in good deeds. I'm not gonna love money, but that also doesn't mean that I can't enjoy whatever. Well, Jesus wouldn't drive a BMW. Well, Jesus didn't drive. He rode a donkey, dummy. Like the things we say.
He might have had a really nice donkey too.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But it's like, why do you got to fly private to get to that thing? I don't fly private yet. I'm on that Southwest flow right now. But my point is, like,
do JSX.
Even stuff like that though, like dumb things like,
yeah,
I think that it is like a weird religious mentality that I believe keeps Christians poor.
Yeah.
And then we can't do all that we could do for the kingdom of God. Like, imagine what we could do if there were more Christians prospering. And I get that, like, even when you say some of this, it's like, well, what about some tribesmen and, the whatever? Like, yeah, but we're not that. We're in America, or we're in the West. There's opportunity all around us. I actually feel like I have a responsibility to not just be a good steward of finances, but to grow my finances. Because I have an opportunity that a lot of people don't have. America has been the number one mission support for world evangelism for the history of America. We are the number one mission support. So a lot of America haters and American bashers, as we're recording this, it was just 4th of July, and everyone wants to talk about how bad America is. The gospel has spread around the world because of American Christians, because of our prosperity. So I never want to, like, I'm never going to shy away from that. We're one of the few nations where you can actually send money to other countries. And you know what I mean? A lot of countries, you can't even do those kind of things. They'll clog it up with all kinds of red tape. And, you couldn't send money right now probably to a church in Russia or Iran. But besides a few things like that, like, I just don't think that's an old, like, the vow of poverty, that old kind of idea is crazy. You don't have to accept it, but I also think you got to be rich in good deeds. That's what the Bible says. And so we're like, I live my life with an open hand. And I'll be honest with you, even, like, I'm just sensitive to, like, well, can I buy that? Lord, are you cool with that? Is it not the time? Is it? So even things like, yeah, we postponed buying kind of our forever home this year. Cause I felt like I got a clear knowing in my heart about what I was supposed to do this year financially. So I don't think God is against me living in the home that I think we'll live in one day. But I think right now it just wasn't
He's
time.
against it right now.
Yeah. It was like, hey, not right now. You're going to do this right now. And it's like, cool, I'm down.
Yeah.
So you're just open to that. And I know I can already hear all the comments coming in, and it's like, that's fine. But then go sell your car and go sell your house and live under a bridge. Cause where's the line?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, it is a blessing to have a home. It is a blessing to have a vehicle. It's a blessing to have health insurance. It's like, if you want to go down the poverty line, then embrace it all the way and sell your iPhone that you're criticizing us on right now. And you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I can't believe these guys believe in prosperity on a $1,200 phone. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe you're a hypocrite,
everything's relative, right? And the Bible always talks about that, right? It's like the tithe. There's no like, hey, you have to give this amount, like dollar wise or coin wise. It's like, no, it's just a percentage of whatever it is for you, right? And it makes it literally like fair across the board.
Right.
Nobody, the widow who gave everything gave the most. So it's like, all right, there's that. Then, you think about your cost of living and all those things. And I think about like, as my wealth has increased, obviously like my cost of living has increased, but it hasn't increased in proportion to my wealth. It's, man, I probably live on less than, I don't know, 10% of my income, right? And the rest is either given or invested, and that's basically it. Like I literally can't even like, I guess, live any better. Right. Like I've reached the max for what I like want/need. Like I
Yep.
have everything I could have ever wanted. And so now my goal is obviously to increase my income. So what am I going to do with it? It's
Yep.
like, it's just going to be given away. It's just going to be reinvested. It's
Yep.
going to be used to build, churches and things for the kingdom.
Well, and
other
more
things.
employees and helping more employees prosper. And like, that's the thing. It's not just about, okay, well, I'm making more money, so I have to give it to the church or to an organization. It's like, well, no, I'm going to reinvest in my company. I'm going to hire more guys. I'm going to empower more people. I'm going to give better incomes. I'm going to I think that's all of it that is all part of our responsibility. And yeah, you talk about cost of living. When we moved here 6 years ago now, we planted the church 5 years ago. We moved here 6 years ago. Our lease in Newport was $5,000 a month. Our cost of living is way less now. And then we ended up buying a home at a 2.3% interest rate.
Yeah.
So our cost of living today is less than it was 6 years ago, but our wealth is, I don't know, 10 times.
Yeah.
It's not about so yeah, you would look at me and go, well, you need that? Well, but my giving is through the roof. My investing is through the roof. My helping people is through the roof. My cost of living is lower than ever.
Yeah.
So it isn't just about okay, cost of living is up. Cool. I get the new this. Okay. Cost of living. Okay, cool. I get wealth is up. I get the new this. It's actually the opposite. It's like, if you make $10 million a year and you spend 10 million in one, you're an idiot. It's it's not about that.
Yeah. The one thing I've always said is especially in our Wealthy Kingdom group, because we have a lot of truly wealthy people. And I'm like, look, this is how I understand the Bible and how I choose to live. But it's to your point, number one, not to your point, but number one, you have the tithe. And so that's the bare minimum of what you are supposed to do. And then, if you're on the side of the tithe was an Old Testament thing or this or that, then I'm like, all right, you already lost. Your heart's already in the totally wrong place.
Right.
So you're disqualified from even having a conversation about this. So, okay, you assume the tithe is the minimum.
Right.
Now, whatever you're going to give above and beyond, that's going to be between you and God, whatever you're feeling like God's calling you to do. So it's for you, it's you're going above and beyond. And, if God says, hey, this is what I want you to do, you can't have the dream house, then it'd be disobedient for you to go and get the house and say, well, I'm still giving the tithe.
Right. Totally.
When you felt called to do this. And that's how I've always felt about it too. It's the moment I start buying this stuff and it prevents me from doing this, I've become disobedient, even if I am tithing.
Yep.
And
because I think the number one, I teach the tithe. I believe in it. I've done it since I was 15. And I think it is generosity 101. The adventure is after the tithe. The adventure is when the Holy Spirit says, do this, do that. Don't do this, don't do that. That's the fun part of generosity, that when God starts leading and guiding you. And that's what Paul says. The Apostle Paul receives this offering in 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and 9. It's 2 chapters and he's receiving an offering. And he says, you can't give what you don't have. So we're not talking about irresponsibility and foolishness. You can't give what you don't have. But a stingy seed is going to get a stingy harvest. A generous seed is going to get a generous harvest. And Paul says, be generous. Don't. And then he says, and God loves a cheerful giver. So if you're going to do this out of pressure then don't do it. But, and I've always wanted to live that way. I've always wanted our church to live that way. Man, listen to God. The Holy Spirit's leading you to do it. Do it. If he's not, and you've heard that a million times now, literally every Sunday I go, if the Holy Spirit's leading you to give today, give. Because it's just I'm not here to argue.
Yeah.
I'm just if you're going to fight me on the tithe and you're going, well, I'm not here to I don't even know where to start with you. Well, in the book of Acts, they gave all. Okay, well, give all then.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to do that. You can't forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was one specific moment at the beginning of the church, Acts chapter 2, where everyone just, man, they gave all.
And someone lied about giving all.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
struck
exactly.
down.
Yeah, and he got killed. So like, it wasn't the principle of how you live. And so it's like, just be generous.
Well, I'll give an example too. Like the first time I ever donated to City Light, I didn't walk in church that day planning to do that.
Yeah.
It was just like, I was just attending church, like to see what it was all about. And I felt the Holy Spirit calling me to do it. Now, you didn't know this, but, in hindsight, right when I did that, the real estate market was like super falling like off a cliff, and like, we had all these flips that weren't selling.
A lot of unknowns. 22. Yeah.
Yeah. This was at the end of 2022, and interest rates, like people were still freaking out about it. Like nobody knew.
A lot of fear.
Lots and lots of fear. And I was like, I feel like God's calling me to do this. Like I really like what they're doing and the mission, and I can see the fruit that, and I want to sow into that. And so, I just did it out of obedience. It wasn't a tithe. It was just an above and beyond thing. And to me, it always becomes like back to, I could have just kept that money and did whatever. I could have invested it in my own business. I could have bought a car, whatever I want to do. Right. But it's like, if you feel the Holy Spirit calling you to do that and you choose not to do it, then for you, it's wrong.
Right. Totally. And our whole thing is, and I love that story because it's like, there are these moments where God will stretch your faith. And at the end of 22, I remember, you had like guys were saying, 23, just the prediction, the doomsday predictions of 23 were like so bad.
Oh yeah.
There was so much fear. I was fearful. I'm like, what are we building this church right now? Like what an idiot, but that's what I mean by the adventure. That's when it's so fun. Like anytime, and I've learned this, and again, people will misrepresent what I'm saying. We're not giving to get. It's not give to get. That's not what this is. Our statement is we give to give again. So he who supplies seed to the sower, 2 Corinthians 9, seed to the sower. So as I sow, God keeps providing seed to give again, not give to get. So it's never like give this amount and God's going to do this. No, it's, as I'm a sower, God just somehow keeps supplying seed so I can keep sowing. And as God increases you get to give more and you get to give more, and it becomes more of an adventure. And so now I'm excited every time I feel the Lord calling me to give big.
Yeah.
Whether it's through a season like it is in 2023 or just a one-time offering.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped because I'm like, man, what does God have planned? And it's never like, I'm going to give this and get a Bentley. Like, no, we're not talking like whatever weird abuses you've seen on YouTube or Christian TV, stop. That's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about like, man, what does God have planned for my future? I'm so pumped.
So I'll share with you. I've never shared this because it just happened this weekend, but I was debating if I was going to never talk about it until I actually do it. But yeah, so
we can cut this later if you want to.
Well, I'll just share it. And if you're still watching right now, then you've lasted this long, so you deserve to hear it. So that's how we're going to roll with this. And for those who don't know that this is like now like one of the biggest visions I have, then that means you didn't watch the whole episode. So you don't get to know. And so anyways, here's what happened. And this is how a lot of my big visions happen. They happen like years before. And then, it's like, it takes time for it to like really grow. And so the whole thing of Wealthy Kingdom, like that had been a vision for years. And now it's finally happening. And we're going to have 40 Bible studies launching next week.
Crazy.
Across the country. We're going to have hundreds at some point, maybe thousands. I don't know. It's going to be crazy. It already is crazy. But anyways, 5 years ago, I went to this thing called Wild at Heart, and it's based off the book for those who have read it. It's a great book. And this guy who runs, his name's Frank Martin, very successful entrepreneur, sold a massive construction company out here in Vegas called Martin Harris. They like literally build the strip and all this other stuff. So very wealthy. And first time I went there, I met him, and I was not the entrepreneur I am today. And I was just like, man, dude, I was like so inspired. I was like, this guy bought like 20 acres to have a ranch where he hosts these retreats where men come together. We do like ATVs, fishing, shooting, golf, hiking, whatever you want to do. You can do it. People are camped out on site. And it just like struck me. I was like, this is how you're supposed to use your wealth. Like, this is it, you know? And I was like, one day I'm going to like do something like this. I don't know how it'll happen, but one day. So then as time went on, you know, wealth and influence increased, and it's funny, my love of golf increased, which it was non-existent before. Right. So basically what happened was I was in Palm Springs last week, and we were staying at this thing. It's called Sensei. And what it is Larry Ellison, who's the founder of Oracle, bought an entire golf course to himself. And it came with one house.
I'm trying to join a country club, guys. I'm not trying to.
So this dude bought his own course by himself, sick, and had a house. And then he had a few guest houses that were like 5,000 square feet, right? For his homies. So he's there for like 10 years. Like, that's it. And he only used it like a couple of weeks a year. So like the staff is on site maintaining it and like all this crazy stuff, right? So then they converted it to the public like 6 months ago. So we stayed there in Palm Springs, and it was an amazing experience. And I was actually talking to one of the guys. He was like, bro, I watch all your stuff. Like, he's one of the staff. And he's like, I've been working here 10 years. I go, you been here for 10 years? I was like, what was it like? And he just starts telling me, he's like, dude, like literally like nobody was here. It was just, we were maintaining it. And sometimes I'd go to Larry's other properties. He also owns an entire island in Hawaii.
Jeez.
So, I mean, it's different levels, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm just sitting there like absorbing it. I'm playing golf literally by myself in the entire course. I'm like, man, this would be sick to have my own course. And then I like started thinking about it, and I was like, that would be like obviously very selfish. Just like seeing how it played out with, I'm like, what like a waste of an opportunity that you could have like used this for a better purpose, right? And it wasn't to like hate on, dude. I mean, when you make $100 billion, do what you want. I'm not judging.
Yeah.
But for my conscience and my spirit, I was like, yeah, I could never do that. That would be such a waste. And it just like all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but like God just gave me this vision and it all clicked. And it was like everything to this point, the culmination of all these ideas and experiences, I was like, I understand what to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go find a piece of land in like Colorado or Montana or Idaho, somewhere like just beautiful scenery. You can go get like tons of acreage for cheap, you know, kind of like in a more remote place. And I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it up into two areas. Half of it is going to be this country club with homes and everything. And it's going to be a sick country club that I personally would like want to join. Right. And people would buy second homes and all this. And it's going to operate like any normal country club and make money and all that. But here's the kicker. The money used is going to support this other half, which is this giant Christian retreat center.
Love it. Wow.
And, you know, I've heard other people talk about building big retreat centers and stuff, but I haven't found anyone who's done it.
Right.
And one of the main problems is it costs a lot. How do you maintain it? There's all these factors that go into it. Well, if you already have this other side that's spitting off cash and you're attracting actually the right people into it, right? Because they know the purpose behind it. It's like, oh, if I'm going to go pay $100,000 to join this club and I'm going to pay, you know, whatever per month. And I know that, it's going towards maintaining this, but it's also helping this.
Totally.
Like I would buy it right now. If somebody had it, I would buy it. I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll buy there. I'll build a second house there. And then, you build this retreat center with stuff for kids, stuff for marriages, stuff for, men's retreats, women's retreats. And I'm just thinking like, how many people never get to experience what I experienced on Palm Springs of like truly being like pampered and like luxury. And, I was reading about, just like honoring God, actually in this book by John Bevere. We're reading it in Bible study, Honor's Reward.
Yeah, great book.
And, he's talking about how like the widow who put all the perfume on Jesus, like got scolded. They're like, dude, why would you put all this expensive stuff? And it's like those who honored God, like, and didn't hold back got like the biggest reward. And I'm thinking like, what if you built this retreat and, these people that have never experienced anything like that, they've never had a couples massage or whatever, and they got to experience that. Like how many marriages could be restored and healed? Totally. It just became crystal clear. I was like, this is how you merge it all. Like this is it. And then like I get a dope golf course with other like-minded Christians. And it's going to be sick. And I'll live there. And then I'll walk across and I'll be like, dang, look at all these people like on retreats and like
100. I love it. I think that's what I mean when I said earlier, freedom and legacy. What's wealth all about? Freedom and legacy. That's it. I don't know how else to define it any better than that. And I think if you're watching this and you're going, okay, well, I'm at 100,000 a year right now. I can't, well, do something, figure out ways to start creating legacy. Maybe you're a Christian, connect to your church and tithe to your church and be a support to your pastor on 100,000 a year, $1 million a year, whatever.
Yeah.
If you've got a passion for wells in Africa or this kind of thing, or, you go to Mexico and build a home, like find a passion project. 'Cause you don't have to be, I think people think that generosity is for the ultra wealthy, but there's levels to it and you actually graduate in it. So, oh man, if to give $1 million, you'd have to be a you'd have to be a billionaire. No, actually not. There's levels. Yeah. Oh, man, to give $100,000, you have to be worth at least. No, actually not. Cause I'm not, and I've given a lot of money away. It's about but graduate, start at levels, find things you're passionate about. And man, that'll be incredible.
Yeah. So that's on my,
what a great idea.
It's not my idea, but yeah, I think,
well, I mean, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nobody's ever done it. So it's going to be crazy, but it's on the 5-year plan now. And I don't have any 5-year plans, literally zero, where I'm like, yep, I need to do this in 5 years. But like I had that vision. I was like, I need to make this happen within the next 5 years of like, however we're going to do this. And so now I start reverse engineering. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to need to build Wealthy Kingdom to a certain level. So we have like already the people who would want it. Then I'm going to have to like go make this amount of money so I can go buy the land and start getting all the plans. And, so now it's like reverse engineering in my mind, how to make it a reality. And it's honestly in my mind, I'm just like, I don't think it's going to be that hard to do. Like, it's just nobody's had the vision or the intent to do it, Well,
and I was thinking, I just had a friend ask me, he goes, hey, have you heard of the Summit Club?
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, I've heard. I drive by it. I wave to it every day.
Hey.
They don't allow me in, but I just say hi. And he goes, yeah, I have a friend who lives in there. He's from out of town. The guy who was asking me, he goes, I have a friend who lives in there half the year. And then he has half the year in Coeur d'Alene at the other Discovery property.
That's what they all do.
And honestly, like I'm sitting there listening to that going like, I don't even understand that level,
Yeah.
But there are, and there's actually more than you would think. And if you can connect it to purpose and not just go like, okay, I'm going to get a vacation home.
Yeah.
At some, guys at some financial level are eventually going to go, okay, I'm going to get a second home.
Yeah.
Man, now I can connect it to something that's actually going to be.
Well, and like even for me, I've been thinking too a lot about the vacation, and I've thought about it for years, and now I finally like have pulled the trigger on land. But now it even is becoming more clear to me on why that's happening, because I'm going to get to see this from the ground up built.
Yep.
And I'm going to get to talk to them and see how they do it, and things like I'm going to have to go through the same exact thing.
Right.
And so I'll get to experience it.
Yep.
And
at the highest level
of
Right.
what, and that's what I want. I don't want like some like budget thing. I want
Yep.
like the highest level of like, you want to be there.
Right.
And you know, there's going to be people too that, you know, by living there, there's just ultra, like it's literally by default,
Yep.
only ultra wealthy people.
Yep.
And so, you know, how many of those people are going to end up supporting my community?
Yep.
You know, like there's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
So it's all starting to like make sense why this is
Right.
happening, why my mind is like starting to see these things. So yeah, I'm excited about
That's
it, man.
awesome. Man, I
I'm
love
excited.
that.
But yeah, I
That's very
think,
cool.
you know, as we close out, like this whole generosity thing is so important, because, you know, it's one thing for a pastor to be like, yeah, you guys should be more generous. Like, and they're like, oh, well, of course. But like, for me anyways, as an unbiased guy, I'm like, when I read the Bible and they talk about the testing, you know, it's like God tests you. And I
Yep.
just can tell you from my own subjective experience, like, you know, when I was making $1,200 as a minor leaguer a month, that's literally what I made a month. I gave $120.
Yep.
And
Yep.
like, it was a lot of money.
Totally.
And I remember my first check making $20,000. I was like, whoa, I got to give $2,000.
Right. It's a lot of money.
Dude, this is crazy. Like, what's he going to do with that $2,000? You know,
Right.
like,
Right. Yeah.
you know, this is a lot of money.
Pastor, what are you going to do with this?
Yeah. Like, this is a huge gift.
Yeah.
And, you know, then I remember my first time, you know, making $100,000.
Yep.
And you're like, wow, I'm going to stroke a check for 10 grand. And then, you know, I remember the first check I stroked for 6 figures, and I'm like, man. But it's like God just keeps
Yep.
testing you, to your point of like, man, you know, if I can trust you with a little, because guess what? If you can't even pay, if you wouldn't even give $120,
Yep.
you think you're going to give 100 grand?
Totally.
No way.
I got to tell this story. Just, I know we probably got to wrap it up, but I remember telling the church early on, this was before COVID, this was years ago. I said, you should learn to tithe before you start making money.
Yeah.
Because it's going to get harder. And it was like kind of a joke, but I was saying how I thank God that my first church job, $800 a month, $200 a week. I had
Yeah.
to get a second job, $200 a week.
I couldn't get a second job.
And I would tithe.
Yeah.
And I, you know, learned the principle. So this guy asked me to go to lunch. We go to Pineda Bread, and we're eating lunch, and he goes, oh, and he pulls something out of his pocket, and he slams it on the table. And he goes, here you go. And he's just frustrated. I go, what is it? And he goes, well, you can look at it. Or no, I said, can I look at it? Because I knew it was a check. I go, can I look at it? He goes, yeah. So I open it. It was like $3 grand. And I go, what is this? He goes, it's my tithe. And he's just like,
Yeah.
you know, and I go, do you not tithe? You know, I said, I don't know. I don't know if you
Yeah.
give or not. And he goes, I don't. I'm going to start. And this is really scary. And he goes, but I loved what you said on Sunday. He goes, I should have started this
Yeah.
younger, because he goes, this is a lot of money, you know. And that was, you know, over 4 years ago. He's still in our church, still giving. And we were laughing. It was like 2 years ago, they gave their largest offering ever. It was like $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I told my dad about it. And he goes, my dad freaked out and literally said that, like, what's Jabin going to do with that? Like, you know, he goes, well, Dad, it's for the building, you know, whatever. But just, you know, learning to stretch, it's like, learn now. And what I've learned is, yeah, God can trust you. Matthew 25, faithful with the little, be ruler over much. Everything in the kingdom is about graduation. It's about levels. It's about like, God goes, can I trust you in this season? Because I know if I can, it's a picture of your next season. So you don't greed your way into your next level. You don't steal your way into your next level. You don't lie your way into your next level. You don't cheat your way into your next level. You give your way. You sow your way. You character and integrity your way into your next level.
Mm-hmm.
And God sees it. And I don't just mean level financially. I just mean in life. Like, God goes, okay, cool. I could trust you at
Yeah.
That I can trust you at this. Okay, cool. I can trust you at this. I can trust you at that.
Yep.
And I'm living proof of that.
100%. Well, guys, I appreciate you coming on, Pastor. It's been fun.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Great conversation.
Loved it.
Hopefully you guys got something out of this, and you know, we're going to continue to talk more about things beyond just business and money, you know, faith, health, all those things that are important, relationships.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to having more guests like you on who can shed light on that. But if you guys enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
When reality TV is more honest than the church you go to, yeah, somebody's quitting that church.
You said something about Jesus and strippers.
Yes, I'm after people in the gutter, fam. I can talk with theologians, and I can talk with some hood. Anybody that has been ruffled by that or feels like, man, I don't like that Tim talks like this or says these words this way. I'm like,